Hello, I'm Michael Sneberger. I've been an attorney for many years, and I'm going to tell you why and how I went back to school and earned a master's degree in computer science. Let's start with my educational history. I did my undergrad work at Arizona State University. I got a BS in finance, and then I went on to law school at the University of Minnesota Law School. So, yep, that's right. My college mascot is a devilish gopher. I remember when I set my pencil down at the end of my last law school final that I thought to myself, I am never going to school again. So I came back to Arizona, passed the bar exam, and started on my legal career. I had just left the position as general counsel of a retail outfit here in the Phoenix area when my girlfriend said to me, why don't you try being a data privacy attorney? And I thought, let's look into that. And I grabbed my first certification, Certified Information Privacy Professional US in November of 2010. And then quickly found out that I was the only person that was interested in me being a data privacy attorney. Because I'm a person who likes to take positive steps to get to an end result, I did something crazy. I got a helicopter pilot's license. After that, I went to work for an interesting company here in the Phoenix area that imports and manufactures tobacco-related products. And when I left there, I thought to myself, I'm not getting where I want to go. What if I go back to school? Maybe that's an option. I knew that what I wanted to learn about was technology. So given that I had come from a business undergrad, I took a look at the MBA program at ASU and saw that they did have a technological component. There was a specific pathway in an MBA that you could take that was based around technological issues. And then something crazy happened. In October of 2015, I learned that the MBA at ASU was going to be free. Yeah, that's right. If you got accepted to the full-time daytime program, you got a full tuition scholarship. They don't do this anymore, so don't get too excited. I think they did it for 4 or 5 years, and then they stopped. But I thought, wait a minute, I'm an alum. I've been to law school. I have an interesting backstory. Let's apply to the MBA program. Of course, in order to do that, you have to take the GMAT. And I took the GMAT. After studying pretty hard and thinking that I was on track, I did, as you can see, really good on the verbal. Didn't do so great on the writing, which I should have. Maybe more practice would help there. But folks, that quant score is the quant score of a lawyer, not an engineer. So I finished my application and I just waited for an answer. Unfortunately, in April of 2016, they said no. I wasn't getting in the MBA program. The going back to school idea was hitting a speed bump. But by the time I had got done taking the GMAT, making the application, and thinking about what it would be like to go back to school, I decided that going back to school is a good idea. It was a good pathway. And then something sad happened in my family. In May of 2016, my step-grandfather passed away at age 97. This is the guy who's a member of the greatest generation. He was wearing an army uniform and holding a rifle and standing in the middle of Germany on Victory in Europe Day in World War II and lived a great, great life. And ultimately left my mom and her sisters some money. And my mom said to me, I don't need this money, so why don't you use it to go back to school? All of a sudden, from the sad event, I had been given a gift of possibility. I could go back to school and it was fully funded. This was amazing. I thought that I could put my brain together with some schooling and I could come up with a new game plan and move my life forward. So off I went. And the first step was to realize that Arizona State University, engineering school in particular, has something they call a deficiency pathway. This is a pathway where if you already have a degree in something else, they will allow you to take all of the undergraduate classes that you would have taken as a computer science undergraduate and then allow you to apply it to the master's program. I didn't want another bachelor's degree, so the master's program made a lot of sense. So I talked to advisors at both the local community college and at ASU, and they provided me with a great map of the classes that I would need to take in the undergrad in order to apply for the master's program. So it was time to get started. I was entering the maze and the path that would get me to where I wanted to go. ASU is about 20 miles from my house. It's mostly freeway. It's a pretty straightforward commute. Traffic isn't too bad. But about halfway there is Scottsdale Community College. And I've been to community college before on my earlier education journeys and really liked the experience. A bunch of professors that don't have research requirements. Some of them do research, but their main focus is on teaching, and the classes are really small. And of course, as we'll talk about later, the cost is really, really low. So I went to Scottsdale Community College, fall of 2016, and because I couldn't test into calculus, you'll remember that quant score, I took a class called pre-calculus, which was a combination of college algebra and trigonometry. That then set me up for the spring of 2017, where I took 3 classes, which, to be honest, was pretty heavy load. I know a lot of you are going to laugh at that, but when you have a calculus class in there and math isn't natural for you, it's a pretty big load. In addition to the calculus class, I took the first 2 programming classes. So this is the very entry into computer science and also software engineering. And I had never programmed. I just want to make this clear. I had never written any code before. And we started by programming in Java. And that was my introduction to programming. Then in the fall of 2017, I took the discrete math class, which is the math that's used in computer science, the math that's related to the digital zeros and ones and the way we think about data in computer science. And I also took a class called 240, which was the first introduction to programming languages other than Java. So we worked with Prolog, Lisp, and C and C++ in there. And that was interesting, but we didn't really delve very deeply into all of those languages. Then in the spring of 2018, I took the electrical engineering class that's required, the undergrads, and it involves some circuit work. We made some circuits, but probably the biggest thing I remember is the Boolean algebra, which is a little bit like a riddle or a puzzle. It's very interesting. And then I took the second calculus class, which thankfully was the last real math class that I needed to take. Some of the algorithm classes that we'll talk about are really math classes, but in terms of pure math, this was the last class. I had 4 semesters under my belt, and I was getting deep into the maze and the pathway. Things were really starting to happen now. It was fully realized that I was going back to school. Now that I had gotten this far through, it was time to actually do the formal application to the master's program at ASU. In order to do that, the GMAT isn't sufficient. You have to take the GRE. So here I was again, taking a big graduate placement test. And you'll see again that I rocked the verbal, and this time finally did what I should have done on the writing back on the GRE. And look at that improvement on the math score. Taking 3 math classes and doing a ton of work on math really improved that score. And once the application was submitted, it was finally time to do something really exciting. It was time to go back to ASU. I hadn't been on campus as a student in a very long time. So it was really great to be back on the Tempe campus. But the first day was a little brutal. In the fall of 2018, it was 118 degrees on my first day back to school. First semester back to ASU in the fall of 2018, I had 2 classes. One of them was 310, which is the basic algorithm class. And it's when you really start to see how problems get solved in programs, and you feel like you're really getting somewhere in the computer science world. In that class, we wrote in C++, which was a rude awakening because I had been working in Java all this time, and now that we had to do serious stuff, it had to be in C++. So that took some extra time to think about getting into a new language much, much deeper. I also took a software engineering class, which is a little bit fluffy, still used Java, worked in groups, and did a group project. It wasn't too bad. Then in the spring of 2019, I took 355, which is building on 310, and you get much, much more serious about algorithms and making code work the way it's supposed to. The professor was a great lecturer, but wow, the exams were brutal. The class average on the first exam was under 20%. It all came out in the end, but it was a little bit scary. The other class in the spring of 2019 was operating systems. Very difficult class. Mainly the reason was we had to write code in C, not just C++, but C. And it was a little bit brutal, but the professor was good. I was now deep into the maze and the pathway. And having a bunch of 300 level classes done really made me feel like I was getting somewhere. In the summer of 2019, I got the great news that I was really hoping for and would have ruined the entire path if it wouldn't have happened. And that was I got accepted to the master's program in computer science at Arizona State. That allowed me, I got that earlier in the summer. So that allowed me to sign up for my first graduate class in summer school. They usually offer 4 summer school classes. So I grabbed a class called Architecture 2, which is a chip design class, extremely difficult, trial by fire on the graduate level. In the fall of 2019, the first day of school was 116 degrees. Once again, a brutal start to the semester. They allow you to take 2 400 level classes as electives when you're in the master's program. So I grabbed a class called 434, which is networking. Everything's networked. Everything you touch is networked. So I thought this was a good class. And it was. I did make some mistakes in there in that I should have started programming in Python, but instead I did some projects in C++, and it was a lot harder. Learned my lesson on that one. The other class I took in the spring of 2019 was basically the data privacy class. And that was right in my wheelhouse, so that class wasn't a problem at all. The most interesting part in there was you were in a group. You had to write a paper for the entire semester with a group of 8 people. That's a lot of people to manage. Then in the spring of 2020, I took 551, which is a continuation of 355. So it is, again, a math class about algorithms. You talk about big O and how fast algorithms are, how some algorithms can never finish, the various Turing kind of principles. And it was a good class because I'm not a good programmer, and there was no programming. You just did math. And then the first big hiccup in the entire pathway. I am interested in security because it's really part of data privacy and protection. So I took a cryptography class. And the C++ programming, which included threading because we were doing really big jobs, was just overwhelming. And I couldn't handle it. And I withdrew from the class, completely embarrassed, but I just wasn't able to get through it. And I just had to take that lump and keep moving forward. But now I had a couple of semesters of graduate work done, and I felt like I was well on my way to my master's program. We were deep into the maze, and the pathway was working. Then in the fall of 2020, something really interesting happened. Something really great. I got a job working in data privacy for a large international bank. And I was originally scheduled to take 2 classes in that fall semester, but because I got a job, I whittled it down to 1. And you'll recall that we could have 2 400 level electives in the master's program. And I got the engineering college to sign off on me taking a class over at the law school and using it as one of those 400 electives. And the class is called Law, Science, and Technology, taught by 2 great professors. And they allowed you to do one of 2 options in the class. You could either take the standard 1 final at the end of class, which is what law schools classes are like, or you could write a 7,500 word paper based on an approved topic that matched the law and technology together. So what I did was I picked a topic that matched up with my new job working for a bank and specifically focusing on the California Consumer Privacy Act. Then in the spring of 2021, I took a database class. It was based on PostgreSQL. You think that's pretty straightforward. PostgreSQL is pretty easy. But what we did was we used Python to control the PostgreSQL and do various things like divide up the data in certain ways in order to mimic a cloud situation and how you would put your various pieces of data in different databases in different data centers. It was a very interesting class, very applicable to what I was doing at work and the people I was talking to at work. During this time, I also fluffed up my 7,500 word paper from law school and turned it into a 10,000 word law review article, which got picked up by an international data privacy law review. So it was super exciting to have a school paper end up being published as a law review article when I wasn't even a law student. Really great. Then in the fall of 2021, I took an interesting class about smart cities technology. It was especially interesting because it wasn't particularly a computer science class. It was also allowed to be taken by people who weren't computer science majors, mostly by people in various business colleges. Then work got really, really busy. So in the spring of 2022, I took one of 2 allowed leaves of absence from my master's program. So you can take 2. This was the first one. So at the end of 2021, I was deep into the maze. The pathway was moving forward. I was getting it done. In the fall of 2022, I took what they call a special projects class. They all have a number 598, related to data privacy and machine learning. Great professor. Mainly what we did was we read scholarly articles and reviewed them. But we also had a group project. And unfortunately, I got in a horrible group, basically unworkable. A couple of great people in the group and a couple of really difficult people. The paper that we produced was embarrassing and I wouldn't show it to anybody. Then in the spring of 2022, I took my second leave of absence. As I mentioned, you're allowed 2. This is my second one. And then in the summer, I made a decision and I resigned my position at work in order to go back and completely focus on getting the master's degree done. In the fall of 2023, not working any longer, the idea was to go back, take 2 classes, be done with the master's program, and move on with my life. And I took another data privacy special interest class and had a great group, and we worked on research related to the CCPA's requirement that websites recognize the global privacy control and measured how bad compliance was on websites that were subject to the CCPA, and ended up writing a really great paper. The other class I took was artificial intelligence. Of course, you got to take AI, right? AI is everything. But come to find out, the AI class was actually a search algorithm class on steroids. And we ended up working using the Berkeley Pac-Man exercises. And the Python programming for those exercises was so brutally difficult that the only way I would have been able to get through that class was to cheat, which would have been pretty easy, but I refused to do that. So sadly, with complete embarrassment, I dropped the second class. And that meant that I had to take another class in the spring of 2024 in order to get done with the master's program. And I took data mining, which sounded like it fit right in with what my interests were. And come to find out that the data mining class was more about artificial intelligence as we think of it than the artificial intelligence class was, which was interesting. But I learned the AI concepts that I really wanted to know and ended up doing some really great work with a great group where we used embeddings created by GPT and then DBScan and analyzed the text of data privacy statements on websites that were subject to the CCPA and made a determination that the rules specifying what needs to go in a data privacy statement set forth by the CCPA did indeed increase the amount of information that was provided to users of the websites. It was good research. The paper was great. It was really, really exciting in May of 2024 to be all the way through the maze. The pathway was complete. I had done all the work to finish my master's degree in computer science at Arizona State University. But a lot of you are probably thinking, how much does this cost? And I have to say that I haven't really seen many videos on YouTube talking about how much the schooling that is discussed actually costs. So let's take a look at that. And just remember that I'm going to do this in 2 levels. I'm going to look at it in terms of if you took this whole crazy deficiency pathway that I did, or if you just wanted to go to ASU to get a computer science master's degree. Let's take a look at the numbers. Make sure you understand that I've left out some numbers here that are really of a big concern, but it's not something that I can deal with. And that is, you're going to have opportunity costs if you take off work to go back to school. You're going to be losing all that money that you would have made working. The other thing is you're going to have to live while you do this. So I'm not talking about living expenses at all. I'm just going to talk about tuition. Let's start with community college business. It's a no-brainer. $105 is a credit hour. Some of the classes have a few more credit hours than they would at ASU. So that makes it a little bit more expensive than it looks. But $105 a credit hour versus $795 a credit hour. I mean, look at that. If you don't have a scholarship and you need 100 and 200 level classes, go to community college. That's the only answer. Ultimately, it was $3,990 for the 100 and 200 level classes at community college, which is a fantastic deal, and $10,416 because of the bigger hourly fee plus parking is $750 a semester. Sorry, $750 a year at ASU. The value that you get at community college is just amazing. When we take a look at the graduate level classes, the per credit hour goes up a little bit. And of course, I lost $6,000 by dropping 2 classes, and the total graduate cost was $34,245, which results then in an entire pathway cost of $48,651. Ultimately, if you're an in-state student in Arizona and you were going to do the entire deficiency pathway that I did, you would be looking at about $40,000. But if you are an in-state student and you already had a STEM degree and met the requirements that were required for the master's degree in computer science, and you didn't drop any classes, you could get that done for under $30,000. Let's wrap this up. So I am very, very proud to have been the oldest person to get a computer science degree from the Arizona State University Ira A. Fulton College of Engineering and the School of Computing and Augmented Intelligence. But would I recommend this pathway to anyone else? No. It's just way too hard. This gray hair is from this master's degree. The payback is just too low. If you think about it, this degree right here and $5 will get me a brewed coffee from Starbucks. I think that going back to school is interesting, but it is a very, very difficult pathway. And even though I made it through the maze, I wouldn't particularly recommend it to anyone else. But if you go back to school, good luck to you. And I hope the gray hair is a little bit less than mine. Thank you.